into that section and just enter your questions into the Q&A section, and we'll be answering questions from there. You can do this anytime throughout the webinar. You don't have to wait till the end. You can do it at any time because we do have some of our team standing by to take a look at the questions and see if we can get some good answers from you guys, or for you guys rather, from those questions. Yeah, and that's about it. We are recording this as well, so if you want to come by and check out this link at any time in the future, check out this video anytime in the future, we'll send you a link. You can review it on your own time. And we are going to be sending out a survey, as we always do. And as a little bit of thank you for filling out that survey, we give you a 10% discount from the content store. Okay, little coupon for you there. And we also have a little weekly special going on. Okay, so if you are in need of some kind of cityscape, city kind of stuff, backgrounds for your scene, this Metro City Life pack is on for $1. Okay, I recommend picking it up. Can't go wrong for $1. And it's regular 29 bucks. So just pick it up. I'll throw this into the chat window for you guys. Okay, let me just get that chat window up here if I can. Maybe it's behind something. Oop, there we go. Okay, let's throw this into our chat window, this URL. Okay, yeah, we have tons of people that are interested in this webinar. So tons and tons of questions we had. We're going to be answering all your questions as we move along here. Now, just to reinforce here, I'm not going to be looking at the chat window. So if you have any questions, put those in the Q&A window as opposed to the chat window. I'll be putting some links if they come up in the chat window as we move on. But for now, let's just go ahead and take care of this stuff that we got going on right now. Okay, so we are in Cartoon Animator 4. Let's get started with the brief demo here. And a lot of you guys had asked questions about, moving your character around the scene, especially for beginners. A lot of the questions I get are in regards to, moving your character on the scene, animation, a lot of animation questions. And of course, we get some questions about character customization as well. The character customization takes a bit longer. It's a bit more of a monotonous process. So we decided to kind of focus on a bit of stuff like the camera work. We're going to do some brief camera work in this. We're going to be doing some very simple character movements, prop manipulation. I'm just going to go ahead and play back the scene for you just so you can get a quick look at what we're going to be dealing with here. And then I'll jump right into the live demo. Let's get ready to learn. All right, so very simple scene. We just have a character walking towards the screen and jumping behind a podium and getting ready to teach. And if you're a teacher or you have a classroom that you teach, this whole scene probably took about, for myself, took about 10-15 minutes. But if you're, explaining it to other people, and if you're a little bit of a newbie, then it might take a little bit longer. But, something like this can just be whipped up really fast. So let's go ahead and see how fast we can whip it up just by jumping right into the live demo. And as we move along, if anything comes up, put that in the Q&A window, just a reminder, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so let's go ahead and start a new project. Everything in this project is default with Cartoon Animator 4. We're going to be sending you this project after the webinar as well. And everything included is with Cartoon Animator 4. So you don't have to worry about watermarks or any of that stuff. Okay, so the first thing we're going to take a look at is creating our background scene. Now, there's two things. There's a difference between scenes and props. This is the first thing we're going to talk about because I got some questions about that. So we're going to go over here to our scene tab, and we're just going to start off with a very simple scene. Okay, now you can find scenes in the scene folder, of course. There are some default ones that are included with Cartoon Animator 4. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to use a general background first. We're going to start with our background first. And for this one, I use this background 002. Okay, so just double click it and it'll add to your stage as a scene. Okay, if we go to our scene manager here, you can see this BG002 is under the scene tab. Okay, now what I'm going to do just to make things simple is I'm going to right click on this background here and I'm going to convert it to a prop. And you'll notice that when I do that, now it's under the prop category in our scene manager. Okay, and I'll tell you why we want to do this in just a moment here. Because we actually have two scenes in this entire project. And the second scene is our typical classroom scene that's included in our scene manager here, or in our content manager rather. Under scene, you can go down here to classroom, classroom 01, and just double click it. Okay, now what happens is if we go to our scene manager, you can see all of these things are categorized under the scene category, okay? And the prop, the other background, it previously was a scene, but now it's a prop. Now, if you leave it as a scene and you double click any other scene, so let's go to the content manager, for example, and let's load in a conference room scene, okay? It's going to replace all of the classroom stuff we had before, okay? So if we go to our scene manager, now it replaces everything. So basically a scene is a collection of different props and stuff that you can just bring into your project at any time. And if you want, I can show you how to save a scene a little bit later on. If someone wants to learn that, just put it in the Q&A. I'll show you really quickly later on. But let's continue with our original scene here first. We're just going to bring in that classroom 01 again. Okay. And now at the very beginning, I want everything in classroom 01 to be invisible. Okay. I don't want it to be visible in my screen. So the way we do that is we can just select every single item in our scene here. So right now I have the blackboard selected, the clock selected, bulletin board. You can also select them from the stage. But I'm just going to do this for simplicity's sake, select them all. At the very top here, we're going to change all the opacities to 0. Okay. So 0. And unfortunately, we can't do them all at once. So we just have to do them individually as individual props because they all have their own individual opacity tracks. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay. All right. Back down to 0. All right. So we have this prop. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our, you see this little blue outline around our background there. This is basically what's going to be shown in the camera. And if we go into camera record mode by pressing this button up here, it's going to change a little bit. Now it becomes red. So let's make sure that our camera mode here, our stage, fills up our entire camera. Okay, just like this. We want to make sure there's no white space within the border of that red outline there. Okay. That looks fine and dandy. We can also resize it if we want as well, but it doesn't really matter in this case because the only stuff that's going to be rendered is the stuff inside the outline. Okay, so let's bring in our character really quick. We have to make sure we do this as quick as possible since we want to get to as many questions later on. I'm going to go to the actor tab and bring in our character. So we're going to go into character here. We're just going to use a simple G3 360 here and we're G3 360 human. And let's bring in good old Philip. Okay. So let's double click and bring Philip into our scene. You can double click or click and drag as always. Now at this time, I don't want to have my camera animated. Okay, so I'm going to go out of camera record mode and we're just going to go ahead and work with this right now. Okay, don't worry about the outline right now. Okay, so obviously Philip's pretty big and our background's pretty small. Now we could resize Philip or we could resize the background, either one works. I'm going to just resize Philip for simplicity's sake here. You can use this, click on the mouse over the outer edge of your selection box and click and drag to make your character smaller or larger. Okay. So let's just go to about that distance right there and we can zoom in a little bit. So this is going to be roughly our resolution when we render. Okay, so we have our character. You can see there's a vague little line there. And I had a couple of questions about people asking me how to make your character walk forward. Making your character walking forward towards the camera in 2D is all about illusion, okay? So you're gonna create the illusion of walking towards the camera. And let's go ahead and go into our animation tab and throw an animation on our character right away, okay? So let's go to motion, and we're gonna go to G3 human and G3 human elastic folks front, because our character is a front-facing character, and we're going to go to move, and we have this walk move. Okay, this is included with Cartoon Animator 4. So we can drag the walk onto our character, or we can simply just double-click it with our character selected, and make sure the character is selected here, and go to walk. Okay. Okay, so our character just takes 2 steps. Now we need to modify this walk slightly. So I'm going to press F3 and go into the timeline. And I'm going to make sure I have this object related track option selected right here. And once we do that, it's only going to have our character's tracks appear. Whatever we have selected, that's going to appear in the timeline. Okay, so we have a motion that we applied. So we'll go to our motion track here, our motion section, and we have this walk. You can see walk under the motion track. And if we zoom in, let's zoom in a little bit. We have this. Okay, you can click and drag in this upper section here, just like that. So 2 quick steps. Whoops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the steps a little bit longer, a little bit slower. So I'm going to go ahead and select this speed option right here in the top. And then I'm going to click and drag my walking speed to about 40 frames there. Okay. So all that does is that makes his walk a little bit slower. So play back. There you go. He takes 2 steps. Okay. Now, if I want to make that walk last for longer, if I want to loop it, for example, then I can use the toggle loop mode here. You can also use the Alt-L hotkey. And I'm just going to loop it about twice. Okay. So what our character is going to do is just walk like this, take about 6 steps forward. Okay. Now to create the illusion of our character walking towards the camera, what we need to do is while this is happening, we have 2 options here. We can either make our character walk towards the camera, or sorry, we can bring him up on the Z-axis, or we can just resize him. So one way to do it is from here to here. We go to this frame here when the last walk ends, and we can just resize our character. Okay. So if we zoom in a little bit, then this is what we're going to have. Okay. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the problem with that is that if we go into our transform track, you'll see the keyframe there. Whenever we move our character or resize it, it has a transform keyframe. The problem with that is that your character is not really moving anywhere on the Z-axis. So if I go to, for example, over here, 3D view, you can see our character is not very far away. The entire walk, he basically just stays the same distance away from the background. Okay, so it's kind of a cheap way to do that. What I like to do as much as I can is I'm just going to go ahead and delete this transform keyframe there. And we're going to just resize our character slightly, or move our character up rather on the Z-axis. So make sure the character is selected first. There we go. And we can go up here to this little doodad gizmo on the bottom here and just bring it forward. Okay, now that's going to bring our character forward. Here you have to be aware of the perspective of your camera as well. In case this may need to be adjusted a little bit later. But let's just move it up to here, and then we'll have, if we go into 3D view from the side, we'll have our character basically walking forward on the actual Z-axis. Okay, so that's a little bit different, and that's what we're going to go with. Okay, we'll use a combination of both actually. I may need to just resize it slightly. Yeah, just a little bit. Make them a little bit larger. Okay, so what we have now here is a character walking towards the camera, just like this. Cool. So we're all set to do that jump into the foreground. Okay, so after he finishes walking. But before that, I'm gonna show you how to add the sound effects really quickly, because we want to coordinate those sound effects with the steps of the character. So let's go over here to our track list. Under project, you'll find 3 tracks: sound effects 1, sound effects 2, and music. You can add sounds to any of those tracks. I'm just going to use sound effects 1 track, and I'm going to double click, and I'm going to find the webinar folder that we have here and throw in some footsteps that I've pre-recorded. Okay, fine and dandy, but we need to kind of synchronize those. That's the first step. So I'm going to click and drag my footsteps to about here. That's the first step right there. So we want to make sure that. Okay, perfect. Now you can resize, you can adjust the speed of everything as well. But since I'm just going to do a brief demo, I'm not going to bother with that. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to throw that in there. And then after his last step, I'll pause for a few frames, and then he's going to do a jump. So let's go back to animation here, and let's do this jump split in the same folder there under elastic full front move. We have this jump split. Okay, so I'm just going to simply apply that to my character like that. Okay, so he jumps. Really simple and easy, just like this. Okay, but as he's jumping, we need to transition from one scene to the next. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's start with our prop here. It's now a prop, it's not a scene. So let's take our background here. And as he begins his jump, okay, we need to, right about here, we're going to go to our opacity track here. And in our opacity track, I'm going to double click and add a keyframe there. And as he lands right here, we're going to change that opacity to 0. Okay, so we'll double click and add another opacity keyframe there. And if we select the background, we can go here and change our opacity to 0. Okay, so from this frame to this frame, that prop background is going to disappear. Then again, of course, at the same time, we need to make all of our other things in the scene appear. So let's go ahead and select all those. Okay, so we can just do them one by one here in opacity. Just double click and add a keyframe. Okay, for each one of these tracks. Right here, you can see it's a 0 opacity. Whenever you double click, it's just going to add a keyframe at the same value. Okay, so we'll go to Blackboard, do the same thing, add a keyframe there. Clock, add a keyframe there. Bulletin board, add a keyframe there. And again, I'm just double clicking in the opacity track to add this keyframe, by the way, because it's just going to be a placeholder to start our transition. Okay, so then it goes, we're going to go, and then at the time he lands right here, we want to have the full classroom in display. So let's do the opposite. Let's go ahead and with our door selected, let's make sure that we have the door selected there and change the opacity to 100. Okay, and you can't see the door in the scene right now. That's okay. You can see the keyframe added there. Podium, you can change that podium opacity to 100. There's the podium. Okay, we're going to have to adjust that podium position in a little bit. But basically, we're just kind of changing the opacity of everything to 100. And just a kind of repetitive process here. There we go. Okay, so we have the transition from one background to the next. Okay, but now we need to kind of adjust the position of that podium here. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and bring this podium forward on the z-axis and position it to wherever we want. Okay, our camera angle is going to be about here. When our character lands, we're going to need to resize that quite significantly as well. Okay, maybe to about that level there. And don't worry about all that stuff, all that positioning and changes we've done. With the podium selected, you can see there's going to be some keyframes here under motion and under transform. To get rid of all those, I can just right click on this podium. Let's make it a little bit smaller, actually, about there. And right click and select remove object animation. And that's going to remove all the animation from the object and keep it right there. Okay. But again, that also removes the opacity. Okay. So generally you want to try and do this beforehand. So we'll take the opacity at frame 0 back down to 0. And then that starts about here. So we'll change that opacity right there. And then opacity here at 100. For our podium. Click. There you go. Okay. Okay. So now we have this. And what we want to do is we also want to have our character jump forward as well. So one thing, we're going to have to move that podium again a little bit further. So with our character selected at this frame here, I want to create that jump forward as well. So when our character jumps, we have about 10 minutes left here. We're going to start from here. And as he leaves the ground, we're going to just double click in the transform track and create a keyframe there. And then as he lands, he's going to land a lot forward. Okay, so we're going to again bring that podium a little bit up again a little bit later on. So he's going to jump from here, and we can maybe even resize him a little bit larger as well to emphasize that jump. So there you go. Boom, just jumps towards the camera. Boom. Okay. And again, that podium is going to need to be repositioned and adjusted. We'll just keep it right there. And then the good old opacity changes one more time. So I forgot to do that. Another way you can cheat is you can just go to opacity like 1 or something like that, and it'll add a keyframe anyways. You can enter in a value of 1. And then when you want it to appear, just enter in a value of 100. There you go. Okay, so we have our character jumping forward, and we have a little bit of a thumbs up at the very end there. And that's the last thing we're going to do for body animation. And we're going to do some face animation quickly after that. So we got about 8 minutes to do that. Let's go ahead and get started. And we have that boing that we're going to bring in there as well. So the boing sound effects, we can just double click on the same track and double click that and have our character bounce forward. And then the body animation. So we're going to start here for the body animation with our character. So this section is about body animation, fairly simple. Very simple keyframe animation that we're going to use. So let's select our character here, and we're going to go to the 2D motion key editor on the left. You can also use the K hotkey to enter this tool. Okay, so we'll click that. And the first thing we want to do whenever you start an animation on the body using keyframes is generally you want to set key. Okay, so set key for the full body. So that basically set a keyframe for every single body part on our character. Now we can't see them all, but if we select, something like the neck, you can see the neck will appear. Okay, neck transform will appear there. You can select like the shoulder and the right arm, and the right arm will appear. You can see the T there stands for transform. That's the transform position. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that, but I just want you to know we had a keyframe here where we start our animation. We're going to go down to frame about 180, so about 5 frames later. And we're going to bring our character a little bit further down. We're going to just take his neck there and kind of crouch him down like this. Let's zoom in so we can see this a bit better. Like this. And we'll take our shoulders down like that. And we're just going to kind of put him into a position before he pops up with his thumbs up. Okay. So we'll bring him kind of like slouch shoulders down here. We can maybe even take his neck and bring his neck down like that. So we have from here to here. He kind of slouches. Okay, so he slouches down. And then maybe about frame 200 or so, or maybe frame 200. Between there, maybe. We're going to have our character pop up and do a thumbs up. Okay, and then we'll do our facial animation after that, and we'll be done. So we'll take our character's neck and just make it upright. And we're going to take that chest and bring it up like this. And the arm, this arm is going to be doing the thumbs up. So let's bring that up here and rotate and rotate. Zoop. Looks like a good position for a thumbs up. There we go. And this one can maybe be hand on his hips or something like that. Okay. All right. I think I'll be okay with that. Now, what's going to happen here is he goes down and then whoop, he pops up like this. Okay. But you can see the pop-up is kind of a little bit too smooth. Okay, so it's not really dynamic or not really energetic. So what we can do is we can just maybe make the timeline a little bit larger here. And you can see all these keyframes that we added. Now, it may look a little bit complicated, but don't worry. It's just basically one keyframe for each of these bones on our character. It corresponds to the bones on the character. So what I can do is I can just click and drag all these if I want and select them all. Shift select the ones that I don't have there. Okay, and I can move them a little bit forward like that, and that'll make it faster. Okay, or what else you can do is you can right click on that, and for each individual keyframe, you can change to a transition curve. Okay, So what I'm going to do is for the character's neck, I'm going to right click on that and select transition curve. And we're going to use a damping transition curve. And we're going to do the same thing for the head. Okay. I'll show you what that is in just a sec here. We're going to use damping transition curve for all the different body parts. If you want to know more about transition curves, I'd be happy to help you out with that. But basically what a transition curve does is it kind of makes your animation a little bit more dynamic between two different keyframes. So if we look now, you can see at about this frame, that's where our character, his hand goes way up to his chest, and then here it goes a little bit further down, okay? So now we have sort of more dynamic motion. So it kind of bounces up and bounces back into position. And that's what the damping is, okay? So if we go to transition curve and we look at the damping, you can see it goes up further and then bounces back down into position, okay? That's the pattern that the damping transition curve has. A little bit complicated for maybe beginners, I think, but a very useful tool to learn, okay? And then as we go to this frame here, we're just going to change our hand to a thumb, or a thumbs up rather, okay? So we do that by using the sprite editor and selecting our hand, and then just choosing the thumbs up sign, okay? And then from this frame on, wink, we have a thumbs up, and there we go. Okay, now we're going to do the last part, this facial animation. We can do this in like a couple of minutes really easily. Okay, so let's go ahead and play back, see what we have so far. And so as he's, giving his thumbs up there, we want him to start speaking. So to have your character talk, the general way to do a facial animation that I follow is I start with the facial animation, or the script rather. So you can go over here to create script, and I have an audio file saved, the same audio file you heard earlier, ready to learn.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay. So if I want to make this really quick, since we're kind of limited on time here, I'm going to use the easiest way possible to create facial animation for your character. At this frame right here, as he pops up, I'm going to give him a facial expression, okay? And to do that, we're going to use the face key editor, okay? Because the face key editor has what are called these templates inside of it. And if we choose like a happy template or a happy to template, you can see the difference in all of these different facial templates. They just kind of animate all the facial features according to whatever template you have. There's some that are like fear, for example. Obviously, we don't want him to be afraid. But this is the fastest and easiest way to animate your character's facial expressions. Okay, so at this frame 184, we're going to use this happy to expression. Okay, and what we need to do is a little bit before that now, since now he's going to be happy for the entire time, I'm going to press F3 and go to the timeline here. Let's close all of these tracks here. And let's open up, fill up, and go into the face track here. We're going to take a look at the facial clip track. Okay. So this is basically where this clip right here is where the voice starts. Okay. But before he starts, we're just going to use a neutral expression. Okay. And that creates a keyframe in the face track here. Okay. Right here. And then this frame right here, this keyframe right here is where we have the happy to. Okay. Or the happy or whatever like that. So from here to here, he's going from a neutral expression to a happy expression. Okay. Like this. Okay. And that's fine. So
let's get ready to learn.
And then he's going to be happy up until like maybe this frame here. We can click happy again. And it's going to add another keyframe there. And then we can go back to maybe a different happy like this one. Okay. And you can see transitions from here to an even happier expression. Okay.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay, so now when he's talking, when he's saying that, let's get ready to learn, I'm just going to do a really quick head movement. And I'm going to do this head movement just using my mouse. And we can do that by using the face puppet tool. Okay, so right from here to here, as he's talking, we're going to use the face puppet tool here. Now, very important here that you erase everything. You clear your selection rather on this little reference image here, clear selection, and we only want head movement. So I'm going to select head rotation and 360 head rotation and go ahead and preview this. And you can see now we can move our character's head like this. So as he's saying, let's get ready to learn, I'm just going to move my mouse and go, let's get ready to learn, like that. Give it a dynamic mouse movement. Really fast and easy. And of course, you can modify this and refine it later on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by pressing record. And
let's get ready to learn.
Okay, now it's going to add a bunch of keyframes here. Don't worry about these keyframes. It doesn't really matter at this point. What's going to happen is you'll see that
let's get ready to learn.
We have this.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay, now it does at this point here change from our happy expression back down to the normal expression. And that's because when you do face puppet, it automatically adds keyframes in the face track. In this case, we don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag all these keyframes and delete them. Okay, we have this.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay, so he has this facial expression like that. And last but not least, I'm going to change his facial expression back to regular facial expression. But we're going to do this using sprite editing. Okay, so from here to here, we can maybe have him wink. So let's use sprite editor right here. And I'm going to select his eye. And we're going to have his eye wink. Okay, so here to here, he's going to wink. And then back to normal. You can see the keyframes in the sprite track there. So a little wink there, maybe a little bit longer. And then we'll just go back to our eyes and maybe change his mouth to a normal mouth instead. Okay. There we go. Okay. Good. You can also do sprite editing using the facial sprites as well. And I'm going to really cut it off right there because I want to focus more on your guys' questions and what kind of stuff you want to learn about. But that's kind of just showing you because I had questions about sprite editing, I had questions about facial expressions, about camera movement. The last thing I'm going to show you actually is camera movement. I forgot to mention that. This is really simple and easy, this camera movement. Again, to go into camera record mode, we can probably do this in like a minute flat. As our character is walking towards the screen, let's go ahead and close down our character's track first. We don't need this. We just need the camera track. Now this is going to be pretty simple. So as our character is walking towards the screen, okay, at frame 125, he stops walking. Let's zoom in on our character a little bit, just very slightly. Okay, just like that. And so now we're going to have this kind of slow camera movement towards our character. And then as he starts his boing, okay, we're going to just double click on the key on the transform track there for the camera. And as he comes towards the scene, as he lands, we're going to have the camera move right here. You can see we get that nice parallax effect because our character is further towards the camera than the background is. So we get a nice sort of 3D feel. You can see the foreground items move faster than the background items. That creates sort of a parallax effect there. And I can talk more about that a little bit later on as well. Okay, something like this. So we have this. Okay, and if we want to add more dynamic, movement to that camera, what we can do is we can right click on this keyframe here and use a transition curve. And we can do the damping as well. Okay, we can do something like a smooth camera movement. Okay, it's hard to be able to notice this probably over the webinar over Zoom, but I encourage you to experiment with yourselves on using these transition curves with various different camera movements because it'll really kind of explain it a lot easier what they actually do. You can have one that ends in a bounce here as well. Okay, so if we do that one that ends in a bounce there, I think let's have this one zoom in closer to the character. So from here to here, makes it more dynamic. Okay,
let's get ready to learn.
All right, I'm going to bring that a little bit up. There we go.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay, done. So again, it doesn't take that long to do this whole process. And if I want, I can throw in that music there at the end, that little Western cowboy music I have. By going to music again and double clicking in the music track just to add that music and in production resources, spaghetti Western music.
Let's get ready to learn.
Okay, so we'll break that right about there and we'll delete the rest of it since we don't need it. And what I want to do is double click on my music track as well. And for the last 25% of the clip, I want it to fade out, gradually fade out. So I'm going to enter 25 there and close that down. And you can see we get a nice clean fade out. And to keep things even cleaner, I'm just going to click and drag my project point slider right over there. Okay, so this is what we have. This is our final product, and I'll play it back.
Let's get ready to learn.
All right, so if you really want to hype up your students, you can add that spaghetti Western track at the end there. Yeah, that's about all I'm going to cover for this section here. So we're going to go directly to your questions. So if you have any questions, anything you want me to demonstrate here, please put that in the Q&A section and I will get into that. Meanwhile, we'll just render this so you can see what the final product looks like. Let's render as an MP4, it's fine. Frame size, we'll just leave it at that. And we'll call it video 2. Fine. Okay, so questions in the Q&A panel. Let's see here. Yeah, someone commenting about my my content manager looking neat and categorized. If only you knew on my other computers how terrible my content manager is. Okay, I just noticed that from the chat window. Okay, so we'll go to the questions here. First question from Sunil. I've noticed that the only way to animate is by creating sprites, which takes some time. Is there a way to animate something in a picture quickly? Yeah, I think I demonstrated 2 ways that are really quick to animate. You know, because I'm kind of a lazy animator myself. I'm not really pro at the at animation. Someone mentioned the Q&A section has been disabled. Is that true? Hopefully the Q&A section is still available, so you guys can answer that. So yeah, just to emphasize on Sunil's comment there, or question. Honestly, the easiest way to let's close this down for now. The easiest way to animate that I showed you is using the facial puppet tool. Okay, this one right here. Control U is the hotkey, or using the face key editor with different expressions. Honestly, I use those all the time, and I use them in combination as well. Just be aware that the facial puppet tool will actually overwrite anything that you have for the face key editor. Okay, so I didn't really mention that, and that's why at the very end of my facial puppet, the facial expression just kind of erased. And that's because the facial puppet tool will automatically add keyframes in that face track, so it'll overwrite it sometimes. Just be aware of that. So actually the best workflow to use would be to use the facial puppet tool first, and then to use the face key editor to modify the facial puppet tool. Hopefully that answers that question there for you, Sunil, or any sort of comment. Yeah, my content manager looks kind of neat right now because I have a lot of other stuff on other computers, but this is more like a demo machine, so try to keep this one as clean as possible. Question from Peggy: if I add bones to my own flat character, will the G2 or G3 animation templates work for my character? This is a really good question, and I think it's something that's confusing to a lot of people. Is we do have a few different types of characters, and not all animations will be compatible with different types of characters. I'll give you an example. For example, if you go over to actor here, you can see there's G2 and G3. Yeah, you may be familiar with that. G2 is from previous versions of Crazy Talk Animator. Whereas now with Cartoon Animator, we only have G3 characters and specific motions for those characters. And there's also free bone characters as well. So free bone characters are just characters that you create your own bone structure. Unfortunately, every single type of character will have animations that are compatible with only those types of characters. So one cool thing about G2 characters is that you can actually import in 360 animations from iClone, for example, like 3D programs like iClone. You can bring in an animation, it will apply to that character, which is really cool. We are in the process of working that out for G3 characters, just as a little teaser for you guys. So we're in the process of getting G3 characters compatible with 360 motions as well. In addition, we are going to be adding some cool motion capture stuff in the near future for body motion capture. So you can really look forward to that. Lots of really cool improvements coming to Cartoon Animator 4 in the next half a year or next year or so here. So highly recommended, keep updated on our developments for that. But to answer your question there, Peggy, yeah, each character is generally only compatible with their own generation of motions. G3 characters is a new kind of level. And so unfortunately, they're not backwards compatible with a lot of the other motions, especially the 360 ones. But certain ones you can apply to your character. Like if you go to animation here, obviously there's G3 human, G3 animals. These are all the animations available, and there's G2 animations here as well. So if I take like a flattened 2D motion, for example, let's try like an idle for a G2 character, like this idle angry. And we click and we try and apply this to our character. Let's select it first. We double click, you can see load motion failed for G3 character. The selected motion is for G1 and G2 characters only, okay? So G3 characters are the ones you're gonna have trouble with for those previous motions, unfortunately. Okay, so let's get to the next question here then. Is there a way to organize all your content? Sunil asks. Yeah, the best way to organize your content, in case you guys aren't aware, what you can do is you can actually go into your folders here, whatever folder you want, right click on any item and go to find file. And if you do that, it's going to show your folder structure here. Okay, so character, you can see this folder structure corresponds with all these folders: G3 360, G3 animals, cats, and you can move them around and explore if you want, and they'll just kind of show up in whatever folder you put them in. So if you don't want all these separate folders, if you want to be like special and adjust these, then it's totally fine. Okay, so that's just as easy as organizing your stuff in Explorer. It's just fine. Okay, so next question from anonymous attendee. Can you show me how to add cartoon animation to footage similar to the Who Framed Roger Rabbit film? That's something that would be a little bit more complicated than I can really demo right here. But generally what you can do is you can export transparent, excuse me, export, for example, you guys know how green screens work. Hopefully a lot of people know how green screens work. So the reason they record it on a green screen is because the green background is very easy to chroma key out, okay, to make it transparent. So what they can do is, generally in your film, there's not going to be anything that's bright green like that. So it's very easy for computers to basically take those backgrounds out of the scene. Now, in iClone and Cartoon Animator, you can also just export, you have to export image sequences if you want a transparent background. So you can export a PNG image sequence, for example, and you can put that together in a program like Adobe Premiere or something by going up to render. If you go to render video, just change your, into render image sequence. So you want to select sequence here, and you want to select PNG. Okay, so when you select PNG, it's going to be a transparent background. Okay, make sure you select PNG, select sequence. So basically every frame is going to be every frame is going to be one image, one PNG image. And then you can put those together in Premiere or whatever, like I mentioned, and you can superimpose it on top of real life footage. That may be an interesting, if you guys really want to know like that whole process to go from step one to the end. I'd be more than happy to do a webinar on this sort of process, because it's a lot easier than it seems, especially when you have transparent PNG. You can just combine them together in Premiere. But yeah, that's how you can export transparent sequences. The only other option is to give a really bright green background and just chroma key it out using chroma key software. All right, hopefully that answers your question there. Next question is from Dale. When working with G2 or G3 characters, what's the order of operations? I want to use voice wave files, face animations, and body animations, mostly purchased ones. I think, Dale, I think that whole process, I kind of went through the whole process, but one thing I want to correct is I would generally use the face puppet before the face key editor. Yeah, like I said, probably the body animation is the thing I do the first. But again, facial animation is more complex than body animation in a lot of cases. And sometimes if you do your body animation first, your facial animation might be more difficult to get right. But it really depends on the scenario. To be honest, I prefer to use the body animation first, just to kind of get the sort of expressions. But again, you have to go back and refine everything as well. So there's no real solid answer for that, because maybe you want to change your expressions based on this new body movement you want, and you have to go back and tweak it and refine it. But that's yeah, body first for me. I'm not a professional animator by any means. I'm probably like a elementary school animator or something. But I just do body first, and then the voice. I would say voice before facial animation, because it's easier to use the voice as a reference for what sort of expression you want your character to have. You don't want to have the expression and try to match the voice to the expression, but it's easier to match the expression to the voice. Hopefully that's clear as mud. If you want more clarification, I'd be happy to clarify that for you there, Dale. And question from James here. Hoping you can give more information about the new system to manipulate the character's hands. So the new system to manipulate the character's hand is actually motion capture. And currently I think we have some teaser demos out there, some teaser videos out there on social media, using leap motion and also using perception neuron, I believe, for hand capture. Yeah, with the leap motion, I mean, it's like $100 on Amazon or something like that. Leap motion is spectacular. For the price, you can do a lot with that $100 for hand animation. Okay, let's go to the next question here. And again, if you need any clarifications, feel free to just ask me afterwards. You can also email me at kai@reallusion.com. That's KAI@reallusion.com. And I'll be able to, go more into depth on your individual projects if you need. Okay. Dale asks, is there a way to export audio as an OMF file? Currently, we don't have that available. OMF export, Dale. But I'm pretty sure you can probably just convert it using your audio editing software. I'm not even sure if I just use Audacity for all my audio needs. It's free. I'm not sure if it even exports to OMF either. I'm pretty sure it does. Audacity is basically like the Blender for audio tools. Free, comprehensive, and well done. Highly recommend it if you guys get a chance. That's this program right here. I'm just gonna open it up because I always like to pump up Audacity. This one here, program I've been using for years and years and years. That basically has almost everything you need for the basic artist. Obviously, if you're working in AAA or high-level productions, then you want some other more refined tools. But Audacity works perfect for me for most of my needs. Okay, so Pavel asks, can you connect or export Cartoon Animator 4 to Unity as well? There's no direct live link to Unity right now, unfortunately, but you can export like sprite sheets for your character animations. I did a tutorial on this probably almost 2 years ago now on exporting sprite sheets into a sprite sheet program that consolidated sprite sheets into animations for your 2D Unity characters. But yeah, you can definitely export all the stuff to Unity, no problem. Various formats you can use for that. But yeah, the process is there's some extra steps along the way. But we are working towards making that as flawless as possible. So, getting as much, just kind of refining the workflow, I guess, from one app to the next there. But if you want more details about that, I can provide that as well. Okay, so Ian asked how to save a scene. Okay, so let's say I wanted to save the scene. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go out of camera record mode first. So if you guys are interested in how to save the scene, let's go ahead and do it. First of all, let's say like everything here, for example, was prop instead. Okay, so we just put together a bunch of props, custom and everything, and then we wanted to save it all as a scene. What we do is we have everything selected that we want in our scene. Okay, so right now we have everything selected. Go to our content manager, go to our custom tab, and to scene, and we're just going to go into custom scene, into the scene folder there, and we'll just press plus here at the bottom. Okay, so what that does is that basically creates ourselves a custom scene. So we'll call this a webinar scene. Enter. Okay, let's save this before we move on here. We'll just temp. Okay. And then we'll just start anew and enter in the scene there. Oop. I think. Yeah. Oh, do we have anything selected? Maybe we didn't have it selected. Well, that's the way you do it, anyways. We don't need to save this project. Let's try and do something a bit simpler, just to show you guys an easier method. Let's go to props here. Say we spent all day putting together this beach mat and this cocktail drink and a little crab. It's a huge crab, actually. All this stuff. So let's say we're like, we spent an hour putting together the scene. We're like, oh, I really like this scene. I want to be able to save it and use it. So again, just select everything. Go to scene there. And of course, you need to convert to scene first, by the way. That's probably what I didn't do. Right-click and convert to scene. Yes. They need to be in scene format to be saved as a scene. I think that's what I didn't do before. So right-click and convert to scene, and then go to your scene manager and plus, and there you go. Okay, so Kai is dumb. There you go. And then you can just start a new project, and look, there you go. There's our new scene. So of course, make sure that you save it, convert it to a scene before you try to save it as a scene. Okay, otherwise the project's going to be totally blank. We can just delete this stupid one here. Oops. Yeah, we wanted to delete that, right? Yes. All right. And if I, went back to my temp project, excuse me. Again, everything in the scene manager, again, it was a prop, so we need to convert it to a scene. Let's convert everything except for the background to a scene there. And then content manager, scene custom. There you go. Maybe we have something to do with the opacity, since the opacity is 0, but let's see if that affects it at all. I believe the opacity has affected it. Oh yeah, so it saves the opacity animation as well. So just be aware of that, okay? It is there, but it's just 0 opacity. So I guess when you save it as a scene, it'll keep those opacity keyframes in there as well, and probably transform keyframes and everything too in that case. So if you have moving props in your scene, it'll probably save the movements of those props as well. Okay, a little bit of an aside there. Next question, let's go to Juan. I'd like to know if it's possible to change the duration of the animation templates in the timeline from 6 seconds to 10 seconds, for example. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely easy to do that, and that's something I can show you really quickly here. Let's bring in not a custom character. Let's bring in a template character. Let's bring in Martha this time. Let's have a Martha do a side facing motion. Like something like a run fast. Okay, so you can see she's running real fast there. Press F3 and go into our timeline. There's our motion clip. So like that. Now, a couple things we can do here. If we want to make that run slower, make sure we click on the clip and go up here to speed. And the speed is up here. You can also use Alt-S. And just click and drag and make that speed or make that clip longer, which will in turn reduce the speed. Okay, so now you can see she's running slower. Another cool thing you can do, just as an aside here, is you can right click on that clip and you can use motion retargeting here. Motion retargeting is generally used for characters that have different proportions, like really short or really tall characters. But you can choose to scale your motion bone down if you want your character to take like smaller steps. Okay, we can preview this. So then she'll run like an old lady. Okay, suddenly that fast sprint is a little bit slower, and she's she's hunched over a bit like an older lady there. Okay, and you can close that down. If you want to learn more about the motion retargeting, I can teach you more about that as well. It's just an easy way to get your character to have a more or less exaggerated motion by using the template motions. Okay. So Neil asks, is there a limit as to what focal length can be used for the camera recording? Going down too much seems to make the scene tiny. Yeah, unfortunately, Sunil, the camera in Cartoon Animator 4 is super, super simple. There is no depth of field for one. It's a possibility in the future. But yeah, there's no real focal length change. It's just that one set focal length. So I guess as a workaround, what you can do is you can move your background or foreground items closer or further away from the scene, kind of as a workaround for an actual focal length of your camera there. So yeah, I not much to say about the camera in Cartoon Animator 4. It's very, very simple. You can see I did that camera animation in like 1 minute before. So yeah, hopefully that works. Okay, what are we doing here? Whoops, did I accidentally click something? Okay, okay, answer that question from Sunil. Okay, Clinton asks, I can go back and watch, however, I missed where to find the box that brings up the dampening and other transition options. Where can I find that? Yeah, I'll show you where to find that. Let's do a jump here. If we can find it, is there a jump here? Or let's just do this walk. Let's transform from one position to the next. So let's have her run maybe a few meters. Yeah, maybe even closer than that since she's taking tiny steps. And let's just throw in a little background here just so we can see, whoops, see her progress. Let's have her walking on the beach. She's running away from a shark or something. Or I don't know, land shark. Okay, so we have this when walking like this, she's running like that. If I go to my transform keyframe and I right click on that keyframe, I can go to transition curve. Okay, so basically this just let's use a creative one. Like let's use this end and a bounce. And you can see here, so she'll kind of go forward and bounce, bounce, and then bounce. Okay. So it's like almost like she's hitting a wall and bouncing off the wall. Okay. And that's where you can find that anyways. Here's one for like damping. So she'll go further and then a little bit back. The stutter start. Okay. So stutter start, she's like, and finally the last part here, she goes really fast. Okay. But anyways, that's where you can find them. And that's transition curves essentially. There's a lot more examples I can give of those as well. But yeah. Juan Vega asks, is there a way to select several keyframes and apply just one smooth keyframe animation? Right now, I don't believe that's possible. We have to do it one by one. Yeah, let me just for the smooth keyframe acceleration. Yeah, unfortunately, you have to do that for every single keyframe. What would be really nice is if we could actually apply that transition curve to all the separate body parts in the motion key editor. So like I showed you earlier, I was doing the same repetitive process of applying that damping transition keyframe to every single body part. Now, it doesn't need to be applied to every single body part. And in fact, to make your animation a bit more natural looking, I recommend applying different transitions to transition curves to different body parts, because generally our body doesn't all move at one simultaneously. For example, like if I bring my thumb up, I'll twist my hip first, and then my and then my arm will come up, and then my thumb will come up, right? So the sequence of events that you would want to have in terms of keyframing your animation is you'd want to have your hip twist first, then your shoulders move forward, and then your arm move, and it all looks smooth, but you want to have those all, one after the next or kind of blended over each other. They don't all move at once for the most part. Yeah, but unfortunately, that's probably something that we will, it's probably something that we'll look to in the near future here. Now, the question about, the earlier question, it was about new system to manipulate the character's hands. I believe our team can probably post that link into the chat window, since I don't want to open up my my Skype right now. We'll for that was for the earlier question. Who was the question from there? That was from James Ferguson, the earlier question about information on manipulating the character's hands. So I think I'll be able to put that in the chat window for you there, Dale, and get more details on that. It's a forum link. Okay, so Valeria asks, will it be possible to render transparent MOVs in Cartoon Animator 4.3? Transparent MOVs in Cartoon Animator 4.3, I'm not totally sure yet. I don't believe so, but that's something that we are looking for in the future. Obviously, the workaround that I mentioned earlier for the PNG image sequence is the best way that we have right now. Yeah, there's nothing in terms of transparent MOVs. There is the ability to export transparent GIFs, but not MOVs at this point, so, unfortunately. But that's something that we'll look at adding in the future here. Dale asked a good question that I get a lot from. Okay, so I've just been notified that now the Mac version can export transparent MOV, but not the PC version right now, apparently. Valeria. So for the Mac version, you can export transparent MOV, but not for PC at this time. And I believe that we're working on that, getting that for both platforms in the future. So let's move on to that question I was addressing earlier with Dale from Dale here. For long animations like 10 minutes, do you edit it all in one project or multiple projects and you use Premiere to put them all together? Definitely, I do not put them all in one project, because the larger your project is, the more it can lag on your machine. So I try to keep my animations light, or sorry, my projects like light and easy to animate. I don't have to deal with lag, and it's just much easier. And you just organize them in folders and stuff, and that's just the best way to do it. I wouldn't recommend, unless you have like one long sequence that you need to string together, like what was I watching the other day, that movie with Chris Hemsworth. There's a scene in that that's about like they're in Bangladesh, and there's like a 12-minute scene where the camera follows him through this slum in Bangladesh. It's pretty cool. It lasts for about 12 minutes. But if you have something like that, you can't do camera cuts. So then you need to have your longer project. And there's lots of other films that have good examples of that. I really love when they do that. They have those really long camera cuts. Just no cutting away to different scenes. The opposite of a Steven Seagal movie. Let's go to next question from a different one. Is it possible to move the head freely but fix the eyes direct to the camera to the front? Yep. I'll show you an example of that. Moving the head freely but keeping the eyes focused on the camera. Let's bring in a character front facing for this one. And the way to do that is to, the way I would do that is to basically have your character's eyes looking forward, okay, and using the facial puppet tool. Now you can do this with any other tool as well, but the head movement, the eyes. Oh, we don't have to look at feature actually in Cartoon Animator 4, so this might be a bit trickier. If we preview, we can move the eyes around like this. Let me think about that. I think that has to be done manually, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I've never actually really thought about that before. I've always just done it manually. Let me think here. I don't believe. Yeah, I think it needs to be done manually. I think there's no way that we can. So you can move the head like this. I mean, it looks like she's looking at the camera all the time, anyways. But I mean, if I moved it over here, for example, then I would have to take the eyes and move the eyes like that, for example, and then move the head over here. Transform. Oh, I want to. Where's my head rotation gizmo? Oh, there it is. Then I'd have to bring my eyes forward like this. Whoops. Okay, so we'd have to do something like this. It would have to be done manually. Unfortunately, I don't believe there's a look at feature in the in Cartoon Animator 4. Okay, unfortunately, yeah, that's something they'll probably look at in the future though, because it's super useful. I use it all the time in iClone, because like I mentioned, I'm a lazy animator. So look at is a nice lazy way to animate. Yeah, but you have to do it manually, I guess. Okay, so question from Jacob. As long as you're in record mode, everything you do is recorded, correct? Just want to make sure. Yeah, I've once you're in record mode, every single camera movement is recorded. So if I enter record mode and I go like this frame, and I go in this frame, I just try to adjust it here. In this frame, I go way out over here. If we play back, it's going to be okay. So sometimes when I'm editing the scene, I forget that I'm in camera record mode, and it just goes wild on me, and I'm like, crap, now I have to delete all these keyframes. So if you wanted to delete the keyframes, you can just press F3 and go into your timeline, just select your project, and the camera keyframes are all here. So you just click and drag and delete them all. Then if you play back, it's fine. All right, we can actually zoom in on her face. Cool. All right, so that's just a question from Jacob. Question from Rhonda. All my characters are rigged for G2. Are you going to support the G2 360-degree characters? The next iteration of characters coming out for Cartoon Animator 4 are going to be 360 G3 characters. Now, those will be compatible with the same 360 motions that G2 characters are compatible with. So for example, if you take those iClone animations and apply them to your, updated they'll probably be called G4 or something. I don't know at this point, but they will be able to accept iClone animations, and they will include scaling as well. So, if your character's arm is facing towards the scene, like, doing the Macarena or something, when both of your hands are stretched forward towards the screen, it's going to automatically scale those limbs to make them seem shorter. Obviously, if you're looking at a person from the front, their arms aren't going to seem as long if they're facing frontwards as if they're facing sidewards, to the side, I guess. Let's use English here. Yeah, but to answer your question there, Rhonda, the new characters, the new updated characters are going to be supporting everything that G2 characters support anyways. So this is going to be the last of the G2 characters, I guess. But of course, we'll keep them on as older edition characters, because I know a lot of people still use them. I got tons of use out of G2 characters back in the day. Yeah, to answer your follow-up question there, yeah, G3 characters will develop into the 360 characters. We will have that in the future there. Another question here from Valeria. Do you have a tutorial on looping custom idle animations on a freebone PNG character, please? Yeah, this is a really good, I can actually show this really quickly, Valeria, if you don't mind, on a freebone character. So looping an idle animation, what you would do is you would just save the animation. So I'll say, for example, let's just, let's use, for example, something like kitty cat, our freebone character. Okay, we can do like let's do an idle animation for Samantha here, okay? She is a freebone actress. So I'll do something similar to what I did before. So we'll go like frame 10, maybe have her look to the side. Or we can just do like facial puppet, I guess, since she has a head. So we'll say that, this is her idle animation. Let's go ahead and record. Okay, so what that did is I created a clip there. If we go back, it should be in the motion track there for face. Am I in the wrong frame? Oh, yep, I'm in the wrong. Hold on a second here. It should be in the face track. Oh, yeah, not in motion or face. We are animating the face, right? Okay, there we go. So there's our puppet clip for the face. If we want to save that, let's just maybe add some body animation if we can as well, really quickly, using the body key editor or 2D motion key editor there. So maybe from this frame to this frame, we'll have our shoulders move slightly. It doesn't have to make sense. We're just moving them. So like here, and then maybe here, almost like she's breathing heavily, maybe. Take these arms and move them up like that. And then I'll just take these keyframes here and copy and paste them over here. Okay, so the animation we have is this. Let's have that as an idle animation, and we can. I'll show you how to loop it a little bit later, but I'm going to collect clip track here, and click and drag and collect clip, and right click and select. We can export this as a perform motion. We can export as a motion. We can even add it to our action menu, our character's action menu. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do two methods here. The easiest way, obviously, is to add to your action menu, and we'll just call this Cool Girl Idol. Okay. And I'm also going to save it. Right click and export perform. Okay. We'll export this to our desktop. Cool Girl Idol. You can see it's called a CTV perform, and save that. So once you have it in your action menu, if you have a free bone character, what you want to do is save your character. Okay, so go to our actor tab here under custom. Let's just save our character plus at the bottom here to save your character. And we'll call her Cool Girl. Cool Girl. All right. And then we can right click new project or just new project and load in Cool Girl. And she should have that idle animation. You can right click, go to action menu and Cool Girl idle. Okay. Okay. So we have that idle animation saved. Another way you can apply it, of course, is just to go to your desktop, click and drag that Cool Girl idle onto the character, and same process. Okay. We'll zoom in there. And then if you want to loop this idle, an easy way to do that is press F3 and go into your timeline. Let's go to our motion. So you can see now here it adds as a motion. Okay. Still under the face as well. But if you want to loop it, what you can do is you can just go ahead and click here. And what you want to do is you want to take the first frame here, right click and break it. And you want to click on this first clip part here and copy it. And you want to paste it down here. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because, oops, we didn't get all the keyframes there. Right click, break, copy the first clip, okay, and paste it over here. Oh, that's because it's all face. Okay, so the body is fine. We'll just keep the body. Okay, we don't need the face. So we'll just do this or we'll just keep the face. We don't need the body. So for the face, we need to change our facial clip, okay, or face motion. So I'm going to right click here, break this clip, right click on the first part, copy it, and paste it over here. This ensures that it's loopable, okay? So I think it's the facial clip one you have to do maybe. It's got to be one of these. But copy and paste that down here. There you go. Okay, so it is the facial clip track, not the face motion track. So, and the reason for putting her back into this position here is so that it can be loopable. So what's going to happen now is, at the end of this frame, if I decide to loop this, let's go ahead and do that really quickly. We'll move these other two down here a little bit further. So if I decide to loop this, for example, it's not going to loop very well. You can see it'll go from here and then it'll jitter. So like that, you can see it'll jitter like this, and there won't be much of a smooth transition. So what you can do is you can actually click and drag this last part of the keyframe there, and click and drag this transition area there, this last clip rather, and click and drag the transition area to make it smoother. So now it's a smooth transition like this. And then if we, click and drag and collect clip one more time, it's going to be a much smoother transition. So let's go ahead and right click and add this to action menu. We'll call it looped. Okay. And then if we just remove our object animation from our character, if we right click her and select action menu looped, okay, we can actually click on this and we can loop it just like this, okay, as long as we want. All right. So there we go. That's how you can loop that easily. Just make sure that your first frame and your last frame of your clip are the same position and same everything. Okay, so next question is from Juan here. If you're making a series channel and you have a repetitive personalized movement, which is the best practice to save those custom moves? I think I just kind of demonstrated if you have a character, the best way to save those moves, honestly, is to the action menu. If you have a character that you use all the time, save those to your character's action menu, because like I mentioned, when you save them as an actor, they will retain all those motions in the action menu. Okay, so I just demonstrated that. So hopefully I killed two birds with one stone with that last example there. Next question is from James here. I used animations at the beginning of a project that moves characters when added. Later, I used the other animation where I had to move the character. So James, your question is a little bit long, but generally I think what may resolve your question here is to understand the difference between loop motion, or sorry, root motions and transform motions. So this is a very important thing for a lot of people to learn. So if I go to just throw in a character here, let's do the same Martha's same side-facing motion there. So the way we discern between loop motion or root motions rather and transform motions is if we go to our animations tab, and let's use like I think we have some in the Elastic Folk side move. Maybe not this one. G3 human motions. Let's find out where there's got to be one in here. I think Turner's female might have some of these. Side. Okay, here's some. So there's a few motions down here you'll notice that have a couple of lines behind them. So this is like a walk, okay? This is a walk forward. When an icon here in your content library has lines behind it, if we double click it, what's going to happen? She's actually going to move physically forward, okay? So she actually moves her body forward. Now that's called a root motion, and that's indicated whenever you see an icon that has these lines behind it, that means the character is going to move forward, but their transform position is not going to move forward. Okay, so notice that when our character moves forward, this little dot, let's actually move her a little bit higher up here. Notice this little gray dot by her right heel there. As she walks forward, that dot is going to stay in the same position, so it's still over here. Okay. However, if we right click on our character and remove object animation, let's apply this walk without the root motion. Okay, this is a transform motion. Now she's walking and she's staying in the same place, and that dot is going to remain the same. If I want her to move forward using the transform method, then I have to move her forward like this. Okay, and you'll see a green line will appear. That means at frame 73, we've moved our character a couple of steps forward. And there you go. Okay, and you can click and drag this to move it forward as well if you want. That's a quick and easy way to adjust it. So if I, for example, let's create a copy of our character here. So by the way, I just press Control and click and drag to make a copy of my character. So for her, let's right click and remove object animation. So this character will have the loop motion. There you go. Okay. And that's the difference between the two. The one on the bottom is the root motion. The one on the top is the transform motion. Maybe I can move her forward a little bit and we get that correct positioning there. So anyways, you get the point. That's the difference between root motions and transform motions. Hopefully that answers your question there. I have received that question quite often from James there, so hope that helped a few of you there. What's question from Rosemary? What's the best way to keep the character walking straight? If I want my character to walk straight, I can't keep him moving forward without going off course. So, Rosemary, one issue you may come across when you move your character on the z-axis as opposed to moving your character at the very beginning, I showed you two methods to simulate that your character is moving forward. So the first one was to let's bring a scene in here really quickly. Something with a lot of stuff in the background. Maybe this outdoor scene will do. If I have my character walking forward, let's just add a couple of characters here. Let's add Philip and make a copy of him. And have him walking forward. let's just control copy and drag. There we go. So let's do that same animation that we had earlier on. We'll just go back to elastic focus front and move, whoops, and have our character walk. And have this character walk. And then let's just loop them. Doesn't really matter how long. I'm just going to show you quickly the difference. Loop them to infinity. Okay, so we have two characters walking forward. Yada, 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 and marching in unison. Let's stop at about frame 150 there. Now this character on the right, I'm going to scale him up and move him slightly forward, just like this, okay? So this seems like this character is now walking towards us. This character, I'm not going to scale him up. I'm just going to bring him forward on the z-axis until he's about roughly the same size. And notice that green line behind him will adjust position. Okay, so now they're roughly the same size, but one I've moved forward on the z-axis and the other one I haven't. So both kind of looks the same, right? Up until about frame 150 right here. But if I zoom closer, notice that when I change my camera, now this character will appear closer, okay? And if I move my background, he's gonna move a lot faster in the foreground. The character that I only resized, that character is going to remain stationary. Well, basically size-wise and position-wise, you know? So he's basically way back there, but we've just resized him. So if you're having trouble, you know, making your character walk straight, notice this green line behind him, okay? Maybe he may not be walking straight. If we record our camera, let's, yes, we'll use this position here. And then we'll go back to frame 1 and maybe do something like way over here. It's going to seem like this character is maybe walking a little bit to the side. Okay. But yeah, so make sure that you are aware of the difference between changing your character's z-axis position and simply scaling them up and down. That may be a way to solve your problem of having your character drifting off to the side or something like that. Okay, let's go to the next question then from Pierre. Despite all the rigging tutorials, I still find the process difficult. Do you anticipate the software ever having some kind of automated rigging process or even an action in Photoshop that could do something similar? I would assume that's probably something that we could do in the future. That would require some, you know, some artificial intelligence stuff, some AI. As you may be aware, we do have a plugin for iClone called Headshot, or for Character Creator, I guess I should say. And what this plugin does is this plugin uses artificial intelligence to analyze a face, the face photo that you input into it, and it will automatically create a fully rigged face. A fully rigged face with eyes in the right place, the mouth in the right place, and that's because it's, you know, utilizing that AI to kind of put those in the right place. So I would assume the same technology can be used for Cartoon Animator 4, but unfortunately, right at this point, this is the only way to do that. I couldn't give you any sort of indicator on when that might be, but that's something that we definitely could be working towards in the future there. Yeah, but yeah, apologies for the difficulty in the rigging process. We've streamlined it as much as possible. It used to be torture when we had G2 characters in Flash, but I can tell you, as someone who's used it for a while, it's improved since the early days. It was really bad back in those days. I think some of our early developers can attest to that. Okay. So Rita asks, what would cause the audio to stop working when a second character is added with audio? So again, as with camera, Cartoon Animator 4 is fairly limited when it comes to audio. Like I mentioned, you only have those 3 tracks. So if you have any more than 3 sounds going on in your scene at the same time simultaneously, then you will have to mix them together in like post-production, because we don't have much for sounds. You can add music and sounds in all these tracks here: sound effects 1, sound effects 2, and music. So you kind of have to try and juggle these 3 tracks simultaneously, and hopefully you don't have too much. Your scene is not too busy. Okay, next question from anonymous attendee. How do you design a character in PSD with perfect joints? So bringing your character into a Photoshop with perfect joints, it's a complicated process, but you should be aware of where the bones are on your character in Photoshop. So if I if I took my this dude into Unreal, or not Unreal, Photoshop, been using too much iClone recently. Let's just go ahead and continue. In case you're not aware, I mean, and this should be familiar to you guys if you've taken a look at any of the tutorials in Photoshop. I mean, for character customization and creation. Hopefully I don't need to log in here again. Just so you're aware where the bones are and everything like that. Let's get it here. He looks like he has a massive chin. Hilarious. All right, so the human bones are all here. Okay, so again, these little nubbins here, these are the bones. Okay, so this is the bone for the left arm. You want to position these at wherever your character's joints are. So we have it at the shoulder joint, or at the elbow joint, wrist joint, and this one's kind of can be at the end of the hand. Doesn't really matter. This is just the finger nub, I believe. Yeah, left hand nub it's called. Nubbin at the end of the hand. You can see here we have 2 at the top of the thighs, knees, and ankles. And basically any rotation point on your character, that's where you want to have these little bone joints. So you, depending on your character's proportions, you may have to reposition these as well. Okay, hopefully that answers your question there. And of course, these can all be found in the RL Bone Human folder. Okay, and the head ones can be found under Talking Head, head bone here. Okay, these ones are little yellow triangle or yellow crosshairs, like this one here, left ear. Okay, and I won't go into too much detail on this. I just wanted to kind of show you where the bones are. So an anonymous attendee asks, can we bring in Crazy Talk 8 head animations into Animator 4? Yes, we can. So when you, excuse me, when you have the option to animate your character or add a script onto your character, for example, if I select this dude over here and I go to create script, I can import in a cartoon script, which is actually, you can import in from Crazy Talk 8. Okay, I think it's a CTS file is what it's called. I'm not sure where I could find this. I don't think I have any Crazy Talk 8 stuff in here. Yeah. Try this one maybe. No. I'd have to get back to you on that because I haven't used Crazy Talk 8 in quite a while. But you can import the Crazy Talk 8 scripts to your character by that method that I showed earlier. If you save the script in Crazy Talk 8. Okay. So let's go on to the next one here. And you guys are really pumping out these questions, eh? Apollo asks, is there a tutorial on creating shading on a character, shadows and mirrors? Also, how can we be notified of future webinars like these? So creating shading on a character is that's something that you need to do in Photoshop or whatever image editing software you use. I don't think we have any tutorials specifically on creating shading on your characters. But if you guys want, there's obviously the Learning Center. If you go to your main Reallusion page, products, Cartoon Animator, there's a Learning Center, which I always recommend to people. Go up here to learn. The tutorials are here. The online manual is here. Webinars are here. And to be notified of the webinars, just let us know. We should once you register, we should give you once you register for a Reallusion account, we should be sending you newsletters anyways. If you want those newsletters, go ahead and let us know. Let me just throw this in the chat, good old chat window there. The Learning Center. We have some people chatting away in the chat window there. All right. Next question here, is it possible to request future tutorials? Yes, certainly. You know, if there's any tutorials that you guys want, please let us know. You can email me, kai@relusion.com, and we can look into creating those tutorials for you. Feel free just to let us know, or you can even just email us, our customer support, or anyone really, and request tutorials. But probably sending to me might be a good idea, and I can pass that on to our tutorial team. All right. Okay, so question from Dale here. How do you return a body and face sprites to default after animations? Well, the best way to do that is in Cartoon Animator, obviously. For body animations, if I right-click my character, let's just use this, do it as an example here. Say at frame 45, he's doing, let's get out of camera edit mode here. He's doing some kind of wacky pose, like torso to the side and head like this. It's like, hey, girl. Can't see, has this kind of like side lean, okay? And we don't want that anymore. We can just go ahead and reset over here under set key options, and it resets it back to the default neutral pose, okay? So what that did is created a few keyframes here. I think they're down here yet. So keyframe right there, and then back to normal right here, okay? So hopefully that's clear. That's how you return to a neutral pose in the 2D motion key editor. Maybe at this frame, we'll do the same thing for the face. So face key editor. I use those templates all the time, the neutral template for the face. So double click neutral. And as he's leaning, we'll give him like this kind of look right there. And then we'll go back to the neutral. Okay. Just like that. So then he'll have neutral, it'll gradually transition. And then, hey, and then back to neutral. Okay. So hopefully that's easy for you there. There's a neutral expression style in the face key editor. So those are the ways to go back to default for both body and for face. Is there a mini viewport similar to iClone 7? Rosemary asks. There is not, unfortunately, at this time, but that's something that we're probably working on in the near future here. We want to get all the features that iClone 7 has, as many of them as possible, into future versions of Cartoon Animator 4. In fact, you may have noticed the pattern that a lot of these features, they come to iClone 7 first, and then they get integrated into Cartoon Animator 4. So if you want to learn more about the future of Cartoon Animator 4, you can take a little bit of a hint and look at what's happening with iClone 7. Obviously, aside from the materials and all that stuff, but and the shaders and stuff, since we don't need that in a Cartoon Animator. But with you know, UI related stuff like that, then yes, the future is in iClone. So question from Juan. This question is for Relusion staff. In the website, Cartoon Animator 4, at the section of PSD to animation pipeline, there's a feature from layout to final production. Yeah, it seems like more of a statement. If you want more clarification of that one, maybe just let me know. Not sure what the purposes of that comment, but yeah, feel free to clarify for me if I didn't, if you need some more information. So Cecil asks, Cecil, whatever, apologies. Did you say something about leap animation for hand motion capture? Leap motion is what I mentioned here. If you guys aren't familiar with that, these are really inexpensive controllers that you can use in combination with iClone as well as Cartoon Animator. I mean, they're not super accurate, but they are effective for a number of things. And I've been a proponent of Leap motion controllers just due to their inexpensive cost. It's like $100. I'll throw this in the chat window, this link for you guys. You can check it out on your own. You can purchase it from Amazon for like 99 bucks or something. So very inexpensive way to get nice natural hand animation. And it's especially good for Cartoon Animator 4, since we don't normally need 3D hand animation for Cartoon Animator 4. It's normally from a single angle. So yeah, that's what Leap Motion is there, Cecil, I was mentioning to you. So a question from Daryl here. Is there an available chart for characters folder? I'm creating my own characters and would love to make them from scratch in the right format, especially nomenclature, the naming. Yeah, so the way, I mean, the way you customize your character folders is completely up to you. Like I mentioned earlier, in the content manager under actor, go to custom. So these are some like stupid characters I've, created in the past. You can also save heads and accessories and stuff here and bodies separately. But again, it's all the naming and everything like that. If you the PSD pipeline only works for the biped characters, the default characters that we have. There is also templates for animals and stuff like that. These different types of templates for G3 animals and everything. So you can export these into PSD and Photoshop as well. But yeah, unfortunately, I guess the only way to you can organize things is your own free way of organizing it. I can't really recommend anything. I just always stick with the default. But one thing I do is I do stick most of my content in a separate hard drive, because my main drive is a smaller solid state drive on all of my computers actually, and the content on Cartoon Animator 4 and iClone gets to be quite a bit after a while, and generally I recommend trying to save that to a separate drive. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next few questions here. Peggy asks, if I have my own vector character, none of the movement of facial animations can be applied. If you have a vector character, a G2 vector character, Peggy, you're limited a little bit for facial animations, since it's only sprite animation. That's correct. There's no deformation of facial features like we have for G3 characters. Hopefully that is clear for you there. So, okay, Juan kind of clarified his question earlier. There's a feature of from layout to final production. Is there any animation video demonstration of it? I don't want to spend time kind of browsing through the website, but hopefully we can kind of get an answer for you there, Juan, if you email us afterwards, because there's a lot of pages on our website, and I don't want to kind of go through trying to figure out what exactly you're looking for at this time. But give me a shout after this is done, and I can probably help you find that. So Rosemary asks, can we combine more than one scene to create a new scene out of them? Yeah, you can do that. Excuse me. Like I mentioned earlier, converting from a scene to a prop. So basically, you would just convert your scene to a prop, bring in the new scene, convert that scene to a prop, and then select all the items from both the scenes and aggregate them together into one scene. That would just be the logical way to do it, I would assume. I'm pretty sure that works. So hopefully that answers your question there. Next question from Jacob. Will you talk about scale of items in the scene? Should I be overly mindful, or will the camera take care of most of that? Jason, I think I kind of demonstrated that with the earlier example there, Jacob, with the two guys walking on the street. You do have to be mindful of scale versus Z position. Again, if you want that really cool parallax effect, like this character doesn't really have it very much, but because this is the other character, we take him forward like this. So if we have like some kind of professional training video where it's like work with us. Do you want to look cool and professional like this guy? You know, we'd have something like this, and it looks a lot cooler with the, you know, the background kind of going by at a different rate. It's called the parallax effect. It's a very common technique used in animation. Okay. Yeah, but just be aware of it. It's much cooler than just scaling up your character, which is kind of why I showed you both. But yeah, sometimes scaling is simpler, or simple. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the question from Clinton here. My projects are all 2,000 frames. Is there a way to increase the length? I believe you can if you go to project settings, increase the length. I'm not sure the limit on this, like 9,000, something like that. Whoops. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably like 9,999. But yeah, you can just go up to project settings and change the length. Oops, sorry, no. Is the animation length? Sorry. No, this is your project settings. I've never done that, so yeah, that's the project length. So you can see here, I can go up to like frame 9,999. Yep. Okay. Obviously, we wouldn't need that, but that's how you can change it up to like that length. I believe that's probably the maximum value, although I've never experimented with that before. Okay, sure what EBS, if you have a question for me particularly, you can just email me. You know my email, kai@reallusion.com. I'm not sure what this is about. Render style, I believe. All right, probably it's best to email me for this render style stuff, since it's kind of, I think it's about character customization. Yeah, prop and vector groups. Yeah, that's something that I'm not too familiar with, but yeah, we can work on that for you there in this. Yeah, email me and we'll get in touch with you there. David asks, is there a way that take one of the actors in Cartoon Animator 4 and put it in Photoshop? Yes. David, basically your question about bringing the CA4 character into Photoshop, that's exactly the way you customize characters. There's two ways to do that. If you have the pipeline version of Cartoon Animator, then you can use the PSD pipeline button. Okay, just like right here. Okay. If you don't have this, then you have to do you know, selecting items on your character and launch to external image editor. Okay, if you don't have pipeline version, then you have to use this method. Okay, so Peggy asks, can you talk what is needed in the pipeline with 2D mocap? Is that for more advanced users? No, mocap is not for advanced users at all. Basically, if you can move your body, then you could do motion capture. So I don't think it's too advanced. And we try to make it super easy for you guys. So again, the motion capture stuff for the hand and the body is coming out, I think mid-May, probably second or third week of May. So you can look forward to that. And there's going to be a whole website launch. There'll be more information on that. It's not really complicated, to be honest. The learning curve for most of our for our 2D products anyways is really simple. It should be pretty straightforward there. Okay, so question from Yong Hee: how to stop moving and keeping your character in a stop state and then move again? Pretty easy stuff. Basically, the easiest way to let's just use an example here of a ball. Very simple example, or whatever prop we have. Let's have a moving cocktail drink. All right, so here we have a drink, maybe at frame, let's go to frame 25. We want it to be here in the middle. And then at frame 25, at frame 50, we want it to remain in the middle, okay? So what I can do is press F3 and go into my timeline, go to my transform track, and just copy this keyframe right click and copy and paste it at frame 50. Boop, and then at frame, 75, we'll move it over here. Okay, so between this frame and this frame here, it's going to be stationary. It's going to stay at the same spot. But here to here, it's going to move. Okay, so here, stay there, and then move. Okay. That's the easiest way to do it. And that technique goes for basically anything. Character animation, facial animation, prop animation, all that stuff. Hopefully that answers your question there. Was that Chiro from Spirited Away as the wallpaper on your screen? No, I think it's just some random anime wallpaper that some artist created from DeviantArt or something. And so I just put it on there. It's not Chiro from Spirited Away, unfortunately. Kind of looks like it though. Then again, those anime characters all look pretty similar, unless they have weird freaky hair or something, or exaggerated muscles. Let's go to the next question from Raymond, though. Can you include live action MP4 clips onto a TV and into CA4? Or do you need to have a GIF in that area? Yeah, you can bring in MP4 clips onto a TV in Cartoon Animator 4. The best way to do that would be if I could find a. Actually, I did find a screen. A screen, anyways. I'm not even sure if I have an MP4. My voice is running out here. Yeah, what you would do is you would just take an MP4 if you can find it. Oh, actually, we did render something, didn't we? Didn't we just render the video? Yeah, and I believe this is an MP4. Let's bring this video in. And we just bring it in as a prop. Oh, fantastic. That didn't work too well, I guess. Maybe this one. What's this from? Hopefully it's safe for work. I think I need to update my codecs. Anyways, you do import it in, just resize it, and you can attach it, link it to the screen. That should work just fine. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question, David. I didn't really demonstrate it, but any clarifications you need, just give me a shout via email. No, unfortunately, Jay Korduski, are the characters can't be shown from a 45-degree angle perspective. Basically, when you're using 2D software, everything is about illusion, the illusion of 2D. It's not the actual 3D perspective. That's for iClone. Is there a tutorial on how to create an explainer video or examples from Raymond? Not specifically on explainer videos, but it's a possibility to create something like that for the next webinar. If you have feedback, we'd be happy to hear that. We are always looking for new webinar topics, so maybe you can fill out that survey, Raymond, for us. You get 10% from the discount store anyways. So okay, a different Rosemary. Is content like Face Maker and Identity Maker compatible with G360 characters? I haven't heard of either of those programs, to my knowledge. But the only thing that's compatible with the G360 characters is Photoshop. Everything has to be done in either Photoshop or whatever image editor software you're using. So Daryl asks a question, what about animating shadows? Shadows, you have to link them to your character. Would be the easiest way. I don't think I actually have any shadows to demonstrate with, unfortunately, but it's done through simple linking and resizing as well. We're gonna go to the last few questions here, guys, since we're about 2 hours almost here. Mike asks, any plans for physics on dogs' ears or hair? We don't have any plans for physics at this time, I don't believe. But that is something that's interesting because I have seen, physics simulations on other 2D software as well. But in terms of the next version, the next updates, I don't think that's in the cards. But I do vaguely remember the team working on something in terms of hair physics for the next version. So I'll have to I'll have to say that's a maybe, a solid maybe. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't give you a solid answer there, Mike. So Clinton asks, is iClone something I should be using with CTA4? Are there transferable elements? To be honest, it really depends if you want your projects to be 2D or 3D. I can assure you that iClone 7, since it has version 7 as opposed to version 4, there's a lot more functionality and a lot more capability with iClone 7. That said, the learning curve is a little bit steeper. It's not even that hard compared to something like Maya or Max or whatever. But yeah, iClone is much more comprehensive, and you have a lot more freedom, obviously, in terms of camera angles, camera types. There's a much better pipeline to other software. But again, it's a bit pricier than Cartoon Animator 4, and works in the 3D realm. But there are transferable elements, like the animations from iClone will be able to be applied to characters in Cartoon Animator 4 in the near future here. Apollo asks, there's no dumb questions here. Is it possible to create complex fighting scenes? Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I remember when I was in, college back in the days when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was that one guy who did stick figure fighting scenes, and I always thought they were really cool. But yeah, you can definitely do the same thing with Cartoon Animator 4, not a problem. Very easy to do. Question here from Kurt. Is it possible to import a solved camera somehow to work with tracked footage? Not now, unfortunately. We don't have image tracking in Cartoon Animator 4. Like I mentioned, the camera operations are very, very basic at this time. But yeah, tracking needs to be done in a different software. Adobe After Effects, for example, or Premiere as well. So sorry about that, Kurt. Not much camera functionality. Okay, so a lot of comments from people getting their question answered, I guess. So Manuel asks, can you black outline the characters for more visual contrast? You can do this in a couple of ways. With characters in G3 characters, you can do that in Photoshop. But if you have G2 characters, like this character, I believe this can be done with render style. So you can see this character as these are vector-based characters as well, so you can zoom in as much as you want, and you won't be able to see any artifacts on the outlines. But render style can be found up here. And you can change your shadow outline from heavy to thin. Okay. Now keep in mind, this is only available with G2 characters. Okay, so you can make the line very thick. I think that's noticeable enough right there. Okay, so G2 characters have these cool render style options that you can use, and different templates as well for render styles. Yeah, I think hopefully they'll develop this a bit more, because I think this is pretty cool, the render style stuff. But yeah, a lot of it's done with Flash, and so that's something that's kind of gone to the wayside. But hope that answers your question there, Manuel. Next question from Tanja. We're in our last three questions here. I'd like to ask you why it's so difficult to work with G2 characters. Yeah, so unfortunately, we took a different direction with the G3 characters. And we are kind of going to come back to the functionality of the G2 characters, like I mentioned, with the 360 animations and stuff. But it's going to be slightly different and more refined. It's going to be better, because the problem with the G2 characters is when you rotate them around, you can see here that they're kind of jerky. Okay, it's not really a smooth transition from here to here, for example. It's very jerky. So G3 characters or G4 characters, whatever they're going to be called, are going to be resolving that issue. Yeah, well, apologies for the kind of gap between the functionality between versions there. Okay, question from Rosemary. Is it better to use frames for playing, rendering, or exporting? Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is there. Oh, maybe image sequence as opposed to exporting a video. Yeah, but I would say exporting a video is obviously a lot easier to handle. The exporting an image sequence can be a bit, I don't want to say sluggish, but you're gonna have a lot more files to deal with. You're gonna have a folder full of images as opposed to one single MP4. But yeah, I think it really depends on what you're doing. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're doing image sequences into or other sprite sheets into our Unity engine, then you need to use image sequences. But a lot of other stuff you can use just video. All right, I think we're at 2 hours now. We're gonna just go ahead and head off this webinar. Again, as always, any questions you guys have, you can always just email me at kai@realuser.com. I'll try and get to those as soon as I can. But yeah, I want just to thank everyone for sticking with us for a couple hours. Hopefully you learned some new tips and tricks along the way. Hopefully we answered all the questions you guys needed answered. But then again, if we didn't, feel free to contact us afterwards. And don't forget to fill out the survey for the content store coupon as well. We're always looking for your feedback on topics for future webinars and tutorials and all that jazz. All right, so thanks everyone. Hopefully you stay safe out there. A lot of us are still self-isolating and whatever, but yeah, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next webinar.